Mrs. Sarah Dow.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well.
It's been so long.
I know. I feel like I saw you at Sammy's like a couple years ago now, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe. I don't go there very often, but definitely could have happened. You're like across the province now. What's up with that?
Yeah, so I actually got a position at the Crown's office. I'm in law school.
Yeah. So like is your overall goal is to become a lawyer?
Yeah, so I'll be a lawyer in less than a year.
That's good to know. It's always good to know a lawyer, you know. You never know when this shit can go sideways.
True.
How long has that process been? I know it's always talked about as a very long process. Is it 7 years?
Yeah, it's more like 8. So it's a 4-year undergrad degree and then 3 years of law school and 1 year of articling.
Wow. The person to argue with. Let's talk about some crazy shit. Just kidding. So everything's going well for you? Like, how was the travel? Like, I know, like, were you local here when you said you were moving the other week? Is that like from here you were moving?
Yeah, so this past year, school's been online. So I was living in Glencoe, which is like half an hour outside of London. So
Yep.
I was living there for the past year or so. And then, yeah, this opportunity arose. So kind of took it and went for it. So
It sounds stressful. Is law school like stressful as hell, or like you're so motivated with it and something you've wanted to do for so long that it's just easier for you to do?
I think it is, people can just go so hard with it, if that makes sense. I think law school is one of those things, once you're in it, you know, you're going to pass like pretty well, unless you just don't hand in stuff. Like they put so much money into having you go there that they're not going to fail you unless you just like totally don't do the work. So, um, it's just one of those things that people just go so hard that I think it stresses them out. Like I've definitely had it. I've had stressful times, especially around exams, but
Yeah.
yeah, got to find that balance with life, right?
Has this always been a goal of yours? Like ever since, like I remember in at Glendale, I took law, and I don't know how well I was at it, but I remember taking it because I found it interesting, and I know that over the past couple of years, like I don't know if you ever watched Suits. I'm sure that the show either drives you nuts or you love it because like I know you know the actual background of law, so I know that's U.S. law, but still it's something you can relate to. Um, I remember watching that show, and for some reason, like Harvey Specter and Mike were so cool. I was like, I want to be I want to be a lawyer.
Yeah.
And then I like look at the school and I'm like, you know what? Maybe that's just not for me. But what convinced you to start that journey? Like, has this always been since high school?
No, so actually, it's funny. So in high school, I really did not get along with my law teacher. He just wasn't a very approachable person, and we actually had quite a few arguments, I guess you could say. So I went into my undergrad degree into medical science. So I wanted to be a doctor when I first finished high school. And then I'm not going to say I didn't like it, but I knew I didn't want to pursue it professionally. So then I kind of did some English courses, ended up taking an English minor, and then I kind of volunteered at a bunch of different places. I went to like a chiropractic office, massage therapy, a law office, and I volunteered at the hospital. And the only one I kind of liked was the law office. So I applied and I got in. So yeah.
Wow, what a journey. Going from wanting to be a doctor to a lawyer. At least you're like you knew how long you were going to be around for the journey, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Um, that's is there a specific type? Like I know there's a lot of different types of law, and not
Yeah.
to stay on this topic at all, but I know there's a lot of different types of law. Is there something that's already piqued your interest throughout your schooling that kind of like steered you in a certain direction of what type of lawyer you want to be?
So no, I don't know yet. And I think that's kind of the hard, a lot of people go into law school thinking like, I want to be a family lawyer, I want to work with children, or I want to do criminal or whatever, real estate, whatever it is. I haven't really found my thing yet, which is hard. Being at the Crown's office, I'm working only with criminal files and we're prosecuting. So I've worked at a defense office, I've worked as a prosecutor now, kind of as a student, and I don't think I want to stick with the criminal stuff. So, got to figure something else out. But that's part of it, right? I'm
Yeah,
young,
I guess
so
it was very smart of you to like volunteer or try out all those different avenues of like chiropractic and going to law and going to the hospital and all those different things to find out where you wanted to be in your life. Is that something that you can pursue after law school? Is to go through and go? You said you've tried out criminal law. is there avenues for you to try out other different like law firms or different types of law before you when you're like, and maybe I'm just so uneducated in this topic, but do you have to choose now and have a specific end of your schooling steer you towards one type of law, or once you've become a licensed lawyer in the province of Ontario, can you choose any type of law you want to go to?
Yeah, so pretty well. Yeah, but of course you don't want to just like go into it not knowing anything. You want to probably work at a law firm that practices that area of law and then either run your own firm, whatever your goal is. So yeah, at this point, yeah, you kind of do whatever. The only thing that requires a different area of law is kind of real estate. You have to have different insurance policies and stuff, but that's just because real estate is so it's so crazy, right? But
Yeah.
Other than that, yeah, all of the rest of them are kind of, you can kind of do whatever out of law school, not like medical school where you really go into one area.
Fair enough. Okay. Well, good for you. Like, that's crazy. Like, that's so much schooling. Like, I was there for 2 years, and as much as I miss college now, I don't miss it for the fact of going to school.
Mhm.
I miss it for the fact of like all my different friends I met and like going out to parties and just being independent. You know what I mean? And I don't think I
Yeah.
missed the schooling. So like for you to stick around for 8 years, you're saying that's very impressive, and it'll definitely pay off. I've never heard of a lawyer that makes bad money, so I'm sure it'll be really beneficial for you and your family in the future. But the reason why I got you on this podcast, you actually reached out to me. You've had a story to tell, and my biggest thing I've had going right now is that I like hearing from people that have a story to tell, something that's happened in their past, something that happens in their present day, and how they chose to deal with it and how they chose to make a life for themselves around it. So we've started with law, and that's where you've ended up, which is amazing. Like for anyone to go through that, like you're saying, they push a lot of money into it, because I'm sure it's not the most common course to be taken. Like it's a long process. It's a big commitment. But my biggest thing that like really brought me into your story was the fact that you did push through all the stuff that you've had to battle throughout your life, and now you are so successful and going to be such an amazing person in your community and be able to bring so much to the table. You said you're open to telling your story, and I'd love to hear about what happened. I know that it starts off when we were in high school. You had lost your mom. Do you mind, and it's completely up to you, you don't have to open up to everything, but do you mind telling us the story of what happened?
Yeah, so I just kind of want to track back a little bit. I
Yeah,
listened to your
definitely.
podcast when you talked about kind of losing your dad, and it really hit home a lot of the stuff you talked about. And you had a way more sudden experience, but a lot of the stuff you spoke about would definitely resonated with me. I feel like losing a parent so young in our lives is definitely it's life changing. So yeah, so my mom was diagnosed when I was in grade 5. So it would have been she was diagnosed in 2005 with breast cancer. So she actually went in a few years before, which I found out later, telling her doctor she had a lump, and then he kind of dismissed it, said it was just a fatty tissue. And then she went back a couple years later with a second lump. He finally sent her for a mammogram, and it turned out to be positive. So I remember, yeah, it was November 30th because it was actually her birthday. And yeah, and it's such a weird thing because I remember we like bought her earrings, and I just remember they were like gold hoops from like some mall, jewelry
Yeah, yeah.
chain. And I remember thinking like, I don't even want to give this to her. Like, I feel like this isn't even like, she deserves anything. And I got her $50 earrings. Like, it felt like a slap in the face, kind of. So that stuck out to me. But yeah, so she was diagnosed with breast cancer. And then, of course, when you're a kid, it just seems like cancer is such a, it's more than just a word. It's definitely a sentence. And more than that. And you just think the worst. And that's kind of
100%. Yeah.
yeah.
Your
So
mind goes
then,
to a terrible place when that word gets brought up. No matter, like, I've definitely had it. Like, my mom's had some moles and stuff removed from her back that were cancerous. They said they were cancerous, and they're gonna be removed. It's no big deal. They always say like it's nothing. We're gonna get rid of it. But that word, regardless of what follows behind it, is just such a like sinking feeling. So
yeah, so many negative connotations, that's for sure. So and it's funny because I remember in the beginning, it was actually like she did such a good job at making it seem very like it was just part of our daily. Like she, needed to go bra shopping because she had the big surgery. So I remember we would go bra shopping, and it was like this like little boutique that you could get like different cup sizes like per breast because of her surgeries. And I remember it was a good time, if that makes sense. It's
a
weird.
memory,
And then
right?
yeah, then I remember like going wig shopping once the chemo occurred, and the same thing. Like I would try on blonde wigs with her, like just kind of for fun and stuff. And we would go to like the mall after her chemo because we were already in London and we were living outside of Tilsonburg, so it was like a day trip for us.
Yep.
Yeah. Then it wasn't until a couple of years later I vividly remember this day too. I remember coming off the school bus, and there was her friend's car in the driveway, and I didn't think anything of it. I walked in the house, and they were both crying. And that was like, I never saw my mom cry. I don't even think I saw her cry on the day she was diagnosed. Like, she was a very strong, positive influence in my life. And then she told us that it had spread. So obviously when cancer spreads, that's the worst news. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that just means obviously it's way harder to control. So it was in her spine, in her bones, and in her shoulder blade. So, yeah, they started a bunch of chemo on that.
So this is all starting, you're in grade 5. So we're like, what, 10 years old?
Yeah. So I think it kind of spread more like grade 6, grade 7, I would say.
So it's within those first couple of years, but like, just to take us right back to the start, like, you even remember feeling bad buying $50 earrings at the age of like 10.
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy, because it almost like I could remember like very little things from elementary school, like doing something on the schoolyard or getting in trouble or getting suspended. Like, I wasn't the best kid in the world, but I remember those things, like those significant things, but I couldn't tell you like events or where I was or what year it was or what grade I was in. It takes something like that, like something so significant, for you to be like, I bought these Goldie hoop earrings. They're $50. I felt bad about it. Like, it was this school year, like right down to like the year and what you got. And like, hearing your stories where you say like you guys tried on wigs and you did like the bra shopping, and it already makes me see how you came out of this stronger and pushed better for such a good life for yourself. Because even at that time, when your mom's going through such a tough thing, you guys are laughing and trying on wigs and being goofy. And it honestly reminds me of that movie, and I can't remember what it's called. You might know what I'm talking about, but like, I think it's a mom that was passing away and they were always goofy. I don't know. Maybe I'm completely butchering this movie. Maybe you don't know what I'm talking about. I watched it when I was a kid, but I swear the mom had cancer, and it was a long process, and she was around a lot, and then she ended up passing away. But regardless, back to the story. So like by the age, or like by 6th grade, 7th grade, now it has spread to her shoulder blade.
Yeah, so it was in her spine, like it was in her bones. So it was in her spine, and it was in her shoulder blade. So they can't really operate bone cancer. So they just try to give you tons of chemo. So, super sick, losing really a lot of weight.
Hard on your body.
Yeah. So then I don't really remember too much of the timeline. I just remember it feeling like, I don't know. I guess it feels like it was relentless at this point, right? It's spreading. So breast cancer can be fed by estrogens. So usually the doctor suggests getting your ovaries out. So I remember she got her ovaries out, and I remember that being really painful for her. I remember it was in her liver at one point. Like it always seemed like it was somewhere new. I remember the cancer actually broke her spine at one point because of how weak it makes your bones. So she was in like an incredible amount of pain. And again, I wouldn't even really know it. She never really complained. So I remember I think I was homesick one day, and I was on the couch, and she was talking to her nurse who came in for home care. They would kind of come in once a week just to check in, see how she was doing. And I remember they asked her like what her pain or like how her pain was doing on a scale of 1 to 10 kind of thing. And she said 10. And I was like shocked. Like, I had no idea. But I think that's just kind of the power of moms. I'm not sure.
I think that's definitely a superpower you get once you've had kids, because my mom's never been through anything like that. But like, even just having a kid, I think about that sometimes. I'm like, how do you just sit there, push out push out a human, and then like the next day you're just like holding on to them. Like, I know you're in pain, but like they never show it. They never show when they're sick. They're always caring about everyone else. Like, it sounds like your mom was incredibly strong. So at this point, like, you're saying that she ended up passing in when you were in grade 11.
Yeah.
So like, she obviously fought her ass off, to say it as blunt as I can, because to get it when you're in grade 5, and to go another 6 years where it's just traveling through her like crazy, like you're saying, liver, broke her spine, it's in her shoulders, it started off in her breasts. Like, where does this go from here? Like, you're in grade 7, grade 8 right now when you're homesick, and she's on a scale of 1 to 10. She's in 10.
Yeah, I don't even know when that would have been, but yeah. So I remember it got really bad, and it spread to her brain, and she was just sleeping a lot. It was not good. So she was at the Secura House, which I don't know if you ever heard of it, but
Yeah,
it's like,
outside of Woodstock.
yeah, and it's
Yep.
A great place. 10 out of 10. The nurses there are so phenomenal. Everyone there is so great.
Never heard a bad thing about that place.
No, and it's like, yeah, it's so good. So I remember rushing to get my G2 so I could go see her after school every day. And because my dad was working a lot, he was still working shift work and stuff. So yeah, and then when she passed away, I was in grade 11. And yeah, it's hard, right? Because your friends are worried about the party that weekend. They're not worried about their parents being sick. Like, I was the only person my age who was going through that. So it was hard.
No, and it like, I remember, like, I was pretty checked out in high school. I really had my own agenda and didn't really care where everyone else was at, but which sucks at the time, or it sucks now. But to think back to high school, I don't remember, like, I remember you being a bubbly person. Like, I remember you in Annandale. Like, I remember when we first started talking, and I think I dated your friend Sarah or something when I was in like in Annandale.
That makes sense.
And I just remember, like, you were always such a bubbly, outgoing person. Like, I wouldn't have known that since grade 5 you had been dealing with your mom, like, slowly, like, going downhill, and fighting such a crazy fight. Like, start with breast cancer, go to your liver, go to your spine, go to your shoulders, like, travel through your body like that, and still be at home and fight it for 6 years is just crazy. And Secura House, always heard amazing things, so I'm glad you definitely pointed that out, because I've never heard a bad thing about that place. It's a great place for someone to be for end of life. I don't think I ever noticed a change in you in high school, and I'm glad I did the podcast tonight. Last night I had a podcast booked. That's why I moved yours tonight, because of the thunderstorm here. I ended up leaving the house, but I did one with Sydney Robertson.
Oh yeah.
So she had a really hard experience with her mom in grade 11.
I remember
So
that.
it was a thing where I sat there and thought to myself, like, I knew you said you lost your mom in grade 11, and Sydney's talking about going through this in grade 11. It makes me realize how checked out everyone is in high school to not notice that one of your peers is going through such a shit time.
Yeah.
And Sydney relates to it as she just made herself as busy as possible. She signed up for extra stuff. She just constantly was doing stuff at school. She didn't want to go home. She didn't want to be a part of that stuff. Like, how did you cope with it originally? Like, when she passed away, you have 2 years, or maybe even only a little bit left of 1 year and one last year of high school before going on to start pursuing the rest of your life. How did you start dealing with that at such a young age?
I think at first it's kind of easy to kind of ignore it, right? Like, my normal was still like, because everyone is like so supportive and so helpful, and everyone's there, like family, friends, neighbors, all that kind of thing. And then probably like 8 months to a year later, like, it hit me, and it hit me hard. And I tried to stay busy, but that only works for so long. And then you end up kind of going the opposite, right? You burn out. But I honestly remember being so depressed that I had mats in my hair because I couldn't get out of bed. And that was my reality for a long time. And I took a 5th year in high school, but I'd already graduated.
Yeah.
But I didn't go to grad because I didn't want to be the only one without a mom there. So I didn't go. And then,
It's tough.
yeah, so I dropped out of my 5th year of high school because I was just like over it. And yeah, and then I remember just being like laying on the couch every day, all day. And that was my normal for a while. And then I kind of was like, this isn't me. This isn't who I am. And kind of picked it up. But I think I needed to go through that to realize like that's not what I ever want to go back to.
Just like for relating it purposes, I don't know if I ever really I was 23. Like I had started my career. I've known what I wanted to do, and I was trying to pursue that. And I was working full time. And if I couldn't, I could have just taken like a leave or a short term time off to cope with it. But at the time, I just kept working. You know what I mean? Like you bust through, you keep going. And I think it took me to the point where like I was driving. I do traveling sales across Ontario, and I had gotten to the point where I'm in my truck so often traveling from place to place that I was just like crying in the truck and like putting on music that reminded me of dad, just to like, I felt like I had to bring myself to the point of crying so that I felt like it was real. I still have my days where it doesn't feel real.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted that day where it was just like hitting a cement wall. Like I was rough for a couple of weeks. I realized like he's never coming back. It's over. It's real, done. And I don't think like I ever really got to that point. But saying like you going from how busy you were and how focused you were on school and being so and doing so well in school to this happening to you sitting on the couch just really isn't you. Did it take anyone to tell you that it wasn't you, or did you sit there and think to yourself like, I can't keep doing this, I need to start pushing myself forward to try and better my life?
Yeah, I don't even really remember. I think so it was a weird time. So my immediate family was going through it too, right? Like they lost someone too, and it hit my dad really hard. That was his life partner. And I think they worked at the same place. So they both worked at CAMI in Ingersoll.
Yep.
And they, worked there for 25 years together. So my dad quit and he got a contract in Alberta when I was in kind of end of grade 12, and he left. And I don't blame him at all. I'm not saying this to blame him, but it was a lot for me. And I think that's probably a combination, right? Having to look after a house and go to school. And I was living with a very mentally ill brother at the time as well. So that was really difficult. So it was all kind of a combination. And I think I just like, not that I needed it, but it was definitely, it was my way of coping with it, I guess, which is kind of burying my head, like taking a minute as in a few months and kind of just, I don't know how else to explain it. And then I feel like that was that winter. And then in the spring, the weather got better. I kind of got back to my, regular routine, hobbies, got outside and stuff. And I felt a lot better. But I don't ever remember a moment of anyone in particular telling me to get it together. I think I hid it really well, as you kind of said, right? I don't think I ever really, really changed that much to everyone else.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. And I really I had the people reach out like, and I don't even know if I really did have a problem, but I remember when it first happened, like it was probably like a year later or 7 months later, I was constantly going out drinking every weekend with like different groups of friends. Like every weekend I was just like drinking Friday, drinking Saturday, done Sunday. And I remember having a couple of friends reaching out asking if like I was okay and if I had a problem, but none of them really like pushing me to like go get help or go seek mental health or go sit down with a therapist. And I remember you did tell me that your brother is schizophrenic.
Yeah.
And so at this point, like, not to bring it up, and like obviously like you said, you don't blame your dad one bit, and it's very hard because I put myself in my mom's shoes compared to my shoes, and like I feel like it's harder for them. As much as I think it's like, I'm not saying that it's not hard for us. And you might have had a different relationship with your mom than I did with my dad. My dad was my best friend. But I picture me losing my spouse now.
Yeah.
Like I picture if Kristen died right now, I think that my kids would not be as upset losing her as I would be, because I had, like, at that point you had kids, you built a life, you spent every day together. It's just like such a big loss in your life. And I'm not like, it's just going back to what you said, he had gotten a job in Alberta. So now you're living, like you're just done high school and you're living alone, taking care of your schizophrenic brother.
Yeah. So, and to relate to that, I totally agree with you. I think it probably is harder for them. But at the time, I was angry that people thought that, and people would tell me that, like, "Oh, well, you're having a harder time."
I completely relate to that.
Yeah. So it's taken me almost 10 years to realize that probably was true. But at the time, I'm like, so I have to finish high school and get married and do all these things without my mom, where my dad's already lived his life, and everyone's feeling sorry for him. And I don't even think I think I was just angry with the world.
No, you are preaching. You are saying exactly how I felt. The amount of people that came up to me and said, like, how's your mom? Like, you really need to look after your mom. Like, you need to make sure that she's okay. And it's just like, well, I'm not okay. Like, I'm a kid. Like, at that time, I'm 23. I get it. I'm different. I was a way different scenario than you. But it's just like, I'm trying to look after me right now. Like, I'm at this point, like, I'm the only guy now. I got 2 sisters. I have a mom. I'm trying to think of like what my roles change, how I'm supposed to like look after them and make sure that they're okay. And it's like, people come up to me, and instead of being like, are you okay? Like, how are you dealing with this? Like, do you need to talk? Do you need to chat? It's like, how's your mom? Like, have you, like, make sure you take care of her. Make sure you look after her. You're the man now. It's just like this. It's just like, this is not what I need right now. Like, it's just as hard on me. And I know how you feel, because I felt the exact same way at the time, until I put it into relation to my fiance now, like losing her.
Right. And and I totally get that. Yeah, it's funny how a little bit of distance can make everything so different. But so my brother was he I think he's still going through some mental health issues, and it is really sad to see. And for a while there, I mean, I think I was probably a shitty attitude 17-year-old at the time. So that didn't help the situation, but we fought so bad, and it ended up being quite dangerous for me to live there. So anyway, we had some altercations. He didn't live there anymore, to say the least. And so it's just kind of me. And it's just crazy to think about. Like, I mean, I was a teenager who was now living on a farm by myself and trying to keep it together, right? So when I accepted my offer to university and I said I was moving away, my dad moved back, which was good timing. And so that's kind of how that all worked out.
So how long was he out there?
About a year.
Did he come back at all throughout that year?
He came back at Christmas for like a week.
That's gotta be so tough for you. Like, I'm sure your dad is an amazing person, and I'm not getting into that. It's just like, that sucks for you. Like,
Yeah.
As much as it is like hard to say, like, you lost your mom and now your dad's gone. Now you're 17, living in a house with your brother who's schizophrenic and no fault of his own is aggressive and abusive to you. Now you're dealing with this shit, and now you leave for school and now he comes back. That must have hurt. That must have sucked.
Yeah, it did. And I think especially being a teenager, right? Like, you think so differently than what I would think now. Like, now I can see, like, my dad was just in pain, right? And he needed something different. He needed a change of scenery. And I get that now. But at the time I was I probably said some things I definitely said things I regret. And I'm a pretty outspoken person on things, like on my feelings. So it was a hard time for sure.
Yeah, I think I've also had my moments throughout the time where I've said some stuff that I regret too. Like, depending on what they do, based on, like, I don't know, like, it's just watching them do stuff that they used to do with them. You know what I mean? Like, yours is a different scenario. He left for a year, and I'm not blaming on him. I'm not blaming him or whatever. Like, everyone has their mental health problems and a different way of dealing with it. Now he might think that wasn't the way he should have dealt with it, but who knows, right? But now you've lived alone. Like, you are destined to be something great, because now you've went through school, lost your mom, helped try to raise your brother, lived on a farm alone, and you're 18, headed to university. Like, lived a lifetime, and you're not even in your 20s yet. So now you're headed to university at that point.
Yeah. Yep. So that's when I went to Brock for pre-med, and met some great people. I loved it. I had a boyfriend at the time back in Tilsonburg, so I definitely was like not really in the party scene too much in university. I was more concerned about definitely went back to see my boyfriend, but also went back to see my dad and my brother to make sure everything was okay. And I think I took on, kind of looking back, I probably took on too much. I definitely was really worried about them and how they were doing. And it was almost exhausting, because I was obviously trying to keep my marks up, trying to get into grad school. And then, yeah.
It's a lot going on at once.
Mm-hmm.
How did you, and you don't have to answer this, as a very personal question. I'm completely open about talking about going to see therapy and dealing with things a certain way for my mental health, because I think that it's so poorly explained to people at a young age. Like, I think that our parents' age, you were weak or crazy or insane if you wanted to go seek mental health, or you want to seek a therapist, or the the openings for you to go see those types of services weren't there as much. It wasn't as commonly used of a thing. Now, today's day and age, it's hugely promoted, it's hugely accepted. Like, if you have mental health issues, go get it checked, because the sooner you get it dealt with, the easier the easier it will be for you to deal with it. And I still feel like it's not promoted enough at a younger age of what the services are that are available to people. Are you open to speaking about how you dealt with it? Like, did you go see therapy? Did you go do anything for your mental health during that time?
So I've been to 3 different therapists. So kind of. So first I spoke to my guidance counselor in high school, and he was not nice. And thinking back, I probably should have honestly reported it. The way that he treated me was super degrading and just super awful. So I think go see different therapists and go seek out help if you need it. So that really kind of shut me down and turned me off of trying to seek out help, because I did that on my own, and it was not a good experience. So then at Brock, I went to go speak to someone, and I don't think Brock was really prepared for that. I think the student services that they had were more kind of just in line with like your regular exam stress, homesickness, that sort of thing. So they kind of just told, like, I remember her telling me, like, buy a coloring book and de-stress. And I thought, like, oh my gosh, like, I just thought, what a waste of half an hour. So then I found my therapist that I have now after that, and she's so great. So yeah, I haven't seen her for a little while now, because I think I'm in a pretty good spot. I kind of see her when I feel like I need to, and sometimes that's once a week for 6 months. Sometimes that's once every 6 months. It kind of just
Yeah,
depends,
for sure.
right? So I would
100%.
definitely, yeah, I would definitely suggest to people to not give up on it, because that's one of the things too, is you have to vibe with that person. Maybe that counselor that I saw, the one at Brock, was really good for some people, and I just didn't get along with her, whatever it was, right?
Yeah, I remember, like, I got really lucky. The first therapist that I ended up sitting down with was really good. It happened to be someone that was recommended to me, and she was an older lady, and just I didn't know what to expect. For everyone who listens and has ever thought about going to seek counseling, I always thought that I'd show up and it'd be awkward for 60 minutes. I
Yeah.
always thought I would sit down and they'd be like, "No, what's wrong? Like, tell me about your feelings. Let's have a hugging circle." And I was just like, I am so not ready for this shit.
Yeah.
But I remember showing up, and, like, it's not awkward ever. Like, it's not like, if you have the therapist that is right for you. I started
Yeah.
off with that person, and maybe that's not for everyone. Like you said, you had some really poor experiences, but with who you're comfortable with now, I sat down and it was like really good. Like, it was just like, it really just started off instantly as like a normal conversation, and like they made you bring up things that you didn't realize were bothering you as much as they were. And like, I know the exercises that my therapist did with me, because she noticed that maybe I had some unfinished things to say to him, which I said a lot to him, but like, it was like life support and like stuff, like he was just not really that cognitive
Mhm.
stuff that I wanted to say. And she just noticed that about me. And she made me write a letter. Like, she sat there and wrote, and I spoke as if I could talk to him right now. And she
Mhm.
wrote it out and she sent it home with me, and like something that I can read still. And it's just really like, if you think you're going to show up to a therapy session and for 60 minutes, you're going to be grilled with 100 questions, or you're going to be asked to speak the entire time, or it's going to be really uncomfortable or awkward. If you find the right therapist, you shouldn't have that. Like, I showed up, and I remember looking at the clock, and it was like 55 minutes in, and I'm like, holy crap. Like, I felt like I was there for 5 minutes. I don't know if you have the same
For sure.
experience with the person that you're with now, but it's just, it flies by.
Yeah. I'm always like, there's no way that was an hour. Like, it's, Yeah, but you just feel so much better after. And even if I always feel exhausted after because you have to work through all those feelings. But yeah, you always feel like so clear after. It's a good feeling. And honestly, I advise it for people, you know, like even if they haven't been through I think it's so easy to talk your way out of it, right? Like, oh, I haven't been through something like that or whatever. But today's stresses are different. I think it's there's nothing wrong with seeking, you know, counseling help. But yeah, I think it's great.
That's such a good thing to say too. Like today's stresses are different. And I know that there's a it's hard for the older generation to listen to that, I feel sometimes. Like, and I'm not shitting on them by any means, but I know that I've talked about certain stuff with older generations, and it's just kind of like, you don't know stress, you don't know work, you don't know this, you don't know that. Like our generation is useless pretty much. And that makes it very hard too. If you don't have someone at home that's positive around going to seek mental health, like you don't have to do it with them. Like you do it on your own. There's so many services that are also free if you don't have the funding. Like there's people that are always there to speak to if you need to. A couple more questions. If you could take anything, like I know it's a hard thing to answer. Um, if you could take any positives from going through that traumatic of a life experience, do you think that you could name any?
So I actually think about this a lot. I think I definitely self-reflect a lot, as cliche as that sounds. And I know if my mom was alive, I would not be in law school. I think I would have chose a way easier path. It would have been way different for me. And I think everything leading up to kind of my life now has been because of, you know, those small everyday decisions. I want to make her proud. I want to do this for her. I want to be like my own person. I want to be independent in this world. And all of that is because of my life, you know, my childhood and my teenage years. So I think, yeah, I don't know if that really answers your question,
No,
but
100% answers my question.
yeah, I think about it all the time. Yeah.
You're very relatable for me. Like, and I know, like I've spoken about it, and I've had people relate to me, but it's nice to hear someone's story and be able to relate to them. Like as weird as that may sound, like I feel the exact same way. I had a lot of things like this. I would definitely not do a podcast if dad didn't pass away because I was always afraid of failing. Like my biggest thing growing up was just like, if I don't start it, I can't fail it. You know what I mean? Like if I don't do it, I can't fail it. I can't be mocked. I can't be laughed at. If it's a stupid idea, no one can say shit about it because I never did it.
Mhm.
Well, he was just a big believer in like, it doesn't matter what anyone else says as long as you are happy doing it. And he was always a big person to do whatever made him happy, regardless of anyone else, as long as it didn't make someone else unhappy. But he was just like such a wild character. Like, and it's so weird to bring up a story like this, but just for comedic relief, we were in Toronto. We went out for our family. We went and did like the ROM and all the stuff in Toronto. I
Mhm.
remember driving or we're walking downtown Toronto, and there was an Indian wedding leaving a church. Like it was like and the only reason why I say Indian weddings because they had like an authentic Indian wedding. Like they all the like traditions that their family would have followed. He is in an Iron Maiden shirt and shorts, and he's walking downtown, and he runs into the picture, puts his arm around the bride and groom. They're all cheering for him, and they're taking pictures of him, and it just describes what type of person he was. And it sounds like your mom was a very, very strong person. And based on the way you were raised and the way you were in high school and the way you were in elementary school and your manners and just how you were brought up, I'm assuming she was the same way. She was just she must have been an amazing person. But I take the exact same thing away as you. Like he didn't care what anyone else thought, and he always did what made him happy. And that's how I live my life now. There's a
Mhm.
lot of things that I would never have done. Like he sure as hell wouldn't have skydived, but I want to. Like I don't want to miss on any opportunities anymore in life. Like I don't want to have things hold me back just in case of just because of someone else's judgment. I don't know. I'm assuming that you feel the same way, but it pushed you to like live every day like your last. Like it does make you also think like life's too short. People work their entire lives to have kids, to have houses, and then it can all be taken away so fast.
Yeah, and that's the thing too is so my mom passed away when she was 46. Like that's literally 20 years away from retirement. Like I don't want to wait until I retire to enjoy my life. So like I've been fortunate enough to travel and to you know, move to cool places like Kenora and stuff. Like I'm really looking at the lake right now. Like it's super cool. Like I'm pretty I try to live my life kind of like that. Like I mean, I hope I don't pass away young, but it is possible, right? So I try to not live my life until, once I buy this house, then I'm going to be happy. Or once I get married and have kids, then I'll be happy. Like, I don't want to live that way. So
It's a great way to think. Like, I read a quote and it was you only live once. Like, it was YOLO, right?
yeah.
And the quote had said, like, you don't only live once, you only die once, you live every single day. So like that one hit hard for me because it made me realize, like, my entire end of high school and my whole 2 years in college, my number one focus was making at least six figures a year and hoping to make $200,000 a year. And that was my goal. Like, I'm going to push, I'm going to push, I'm going to push, I'm going to push. I'm going to have rental houses. I'm going to have um, all this like businesses that make me money without having to do anything with them and all this shit. Like, my focus was just money, 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 money. Then you lose someone like that and you're just like, he never even got to retire. Like, he worked his ass off his entire life, saved his money, did whatever, and he can't spend it. Like, he's no longer here, right? It just makes you think. It really just brought into light, like, money's not everything. Happiness is such a big thing for me now, and I really do live my life every weekend now. Like, let's do something. Let's get out there. Let's experience something. And yeah, anyway, it changed my life. And excuse me, I really, regardless, thank you so much for coming on here and talking to me about this and sitting down and telling your story. I'm sure it really helps people, like, relate to another story like yours. But good for you. Like, congratulations on almost being done law school. Like, when are you done?
I still have the bar exam. So if I pass and everything, it'll be next summer sometime. Yeah.
So, really weird thing, not a weird thing to bring up, but kind of just to continue here for a second. We don't have LSATs, right?
Yeah, we do. Yeah. So I had to write the LSAT.
So what's the difference in what does the states do that we don't?
I know it's all the same.
Why did I ever think that the bar was just US?
No, they're both.
I watched Suits and thought I was a lawyer for a little while there. So.
Yeah, then you go to law school and you realize it's fake. No, I'm just joking. But so we write the LSAT to get in, and then that's like a standardized test, and then you write, like, you have to do the bar. So after you're done to actually be a lawyer.
Amazing. Well, again, that was an easy breezy 1 hour to sit down and talk to you. Your story is amazing. Thank you so much for sharing it with us today. One thing I always like to ask, and it's completely up to you, if you're not comfortable with it, don't worry about it. But I had a lot of people reach out to me because my story was relatable and just say, like, thank you, or I've had this hard time and this is how I dealt with it. Like, do you have any recommendations? You're a woman, and I got reached out to by a lot of guys, younger men. If someone wanted to reach out to you to just say thank you or ask you a question about your story or how you dealt with a specific situation, is that okay with you?
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of why I wanted to come on here too. Because I thought that your story was super relatable, and that's why I kind of reached out. So of course. I mean, I don't know how you do that. Do you just link someone like Instagram or Facebook? I don't know how that works.
It's completely up to where you want to be reached out to. I can put your social media platforms at the bottom of the link in the podcast, like on Spotify, Google, Amazon. I can make sure that your either email address is there or at least the link to your social media, like Instagram, if that's the easiest way to reach you.
Yeah, probably Instagram. That'd be great.
Awesome. Well, if anyone has any questions, especially the females that listen to this podcast, or regardless of what your gender is, reach out to Sarah and you can ask her questions about her journey and how she decided to deal with her mental health. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to listen or to reach out to me. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. Thank you so much for joining me, Sarah. And I definitely love to do it again.
Yeah, sounds great. I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah. Have a good night.
You too. Bye.